They shut off my water at 3 a.m. while my wife was in chemotherapy. I woke up to her screaming because the toilet wouldn't flush. By the time this was over, I didn't just get revenge, I destroyed their entire water monopoly and took half the neighborhood with me. The notification came on a Tuesday afternoon in March of 2023. Not a phone call, not a warning, just a cold corporate email with the subject line "Water Services Termination, effective immediately." I was sitting in my home office when it arrived, reviewing geological surveys for a consulting project, 42 years as a hydrogeologist, and I'd spent the last 15 of them in peaceful retirement in Riverside Glen, a planned community in central Arizona. My wife Linda and I had chosen this place specifically for its quiet streets and reasonable HOA. That was before Karen Whitmore joined the board. The email was brief. Dear Mr. Chen, due to multiple violations of Riverside Glen Community Standards, Section 7.3, regarding lawn maintenance and exterior paint approval, your water service will be terminated effective 5 p.m. today, March 14th, 2023. Service will be restored upon payment of $8,500 in fines and completion of all corrective actions. Regards, Riverside Glen, HOA, Board. I read it 3 times. $8,500. For what? I walked through my house to the backyard, looking at my lawn. Yes, there were some brown patches. We'd been conserving water because of the drought warnings. The exterior paint. We'd touched up some trim 6 months ago with the exact same color. I had the receipts, the paint codes, everything documented, but that wasn't the real issue. The real issue was that Karen Whitmore lived 2 doors down, and she'd hated us. Ever since Linda's support group started meeting at our house. Linda had stage 3 ovarian cancer. Every Thursday evening, 6 women gathered in our living room for 2 hours of support, tears, laughter, and healing. They parked on the street. They spoke quietly. They left by 9 p.m., but Karen had decided it was a commercial activity and had been trying to shut it down for 8 months. This was her nuclear option. I called the HOA office immediately. The receptionist, a kind woman named Maria who'd always been helpful, answered with an apologetic tone. Mr. Chen, I'm so sorry. The board vote was 5-2. Ms. Whitmore pushed it through this morning. Maria, my wife is going through chemotherapy. We can't be without water. I know. Her voice cracked. Barbara fought against it. She and Tom voted no. But Karen had the others convinced this was about maintaining standards. Barbara Martinez was the HOA president, a retired teacher who'd always been fair and reasonable. If she'd voted against this, then this was purely vindictive. When does the water actually shut off? I asked. According to the order, 5 p.m. today. I looked at my watch. 3:15 p.m., less than 2 hours. Maria, can I appeal this? Yes, but the next board meeting isn't until April 4th. 3 weeks away. 3 weeks without water, with Linda's immune system compromised from chemo that was dangerous, potentially deadly. I thanked Maria and hung up. Then I did what any former hydrogeologist would do. I opened my filing cabinet and pulled out the geological survey I'd commissioned when we bought the house 12 years ago. I'd ordered it out of professional curiosity and because old habits die hard. The survey showed everything: soil composition, water table, depth, aquifer locations, mineral content. I spread the maps across my desk and studied them with fresh eyes. The primary aquifer sat 93 feet below my property. High-quality water, excellent flow rate, minimal treatment needed. In Arizona, property owners have rights to reasonable use of groundwater beneath their land. The HOA controlled the municipal water connection, but they didn't control what was underground. I started making calls. At 4:45 p.m., I'd lined up 3 different well drilling companies for quotes. At 4:58 p.m., I filled every container in the house with water pots, bathtubs, bottles, buckets. At 5:03 p.m., the water stopped flowing. Linda was resting upstairs. I didn't tell her yet. She had a chemo session the next morning, and I didn't want her stressed before treatment. That night, I lay in bed planning. The HOA wanted $8,500, and wanted us to repaint the entire house exterior for color code violations that didn't exist. The paint job alone would cost another $12,000. Or I could drill a well for approximately $23,000 and never pay the HOA another water bill again. The math wasn't even close. But it wasn't about money. It was about principle. At 2:47 a.m., Linda woke up needing the bathroom. I heard her confused voice from down the hall. "Robert, the toilet won't flush." I got up, my stomach sinking. I'd forgotten to fill the toilet tanks. The water's off temporarily. "Honey, use the bucket in the tub. I've got water in there." "Off." Why? I couldn't lie to her. I sat on the edge of the bed and explained everything, the email, the fines, Karen's campaign against her support group. Linda was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed. Not a bitter laugh, a genuine, delighted laugh that I hadn't heard in months. "That woman really thinks she can bully us. She already has." No. Linda's eyes had that fierce spark I'd fallen in love with 46 years ago. She's made a tactical error. She's bullying a hydrogeologist who's had nothing but time on his hands for 15 years. "What are you planning?" I showed her the geological surveys, the well drill in quotes, the property rights documentation I'd been reviewing. Linda smiled. "How long until we have water again?" "If I push it, 5 to 7 days for the well, another 2 days for a full system integration." "And how long until the HOA realizes what we're doing?" "Probably when the drilling rig shows up in our driveway." "Good." She squeezed my hand. "I want to see Karen's face when she figures it out." The next morning, while Linda was at her chemo appointment with her sister, I got 3 more quotes and selected Desert Springs well drilling. They were expensive but fast, and their owner, Miguel Rodriguez, had experience with residential properties in HOA communities. "You're going to have visitors," Miguel warned me when he came by for the site assessment. "The HOA types don't like independence. They'll try to stop you. Let them try. I've checked every regulation. They don't control groundwater rights." Miguel walked the property with a practiced eye, then pointed to a spot 32 feet from the house. "Here. Good access. Won't damage your landscaping too much. And the survey shows the aquifer is strong right below this point. We can start Monday morning." It was Thursday. 4 days away. "Can you start sooner?" "Emergency rate applies. 50% premium." "I'll pay it." "Start tomorrow." Miguel raised an eyebrow. "They really made you mad, didn't they? They cut off water to a cancer patient." "Yes, they made me mad." Friday morning at 7 a.m., the drilling rig arrived. It was impossible to miss a massive truck with specialized equipment that could be heard 3 streets away. By 7:30 a.m., Karen was at my door. She was 57 years old, with professionally styled blonde hair that probably cost $300 a month to maintain, designer athleisure where that cost more than my car payment, and an expression of righteous fury that would have intimidated most people. I opened the door and smiled. "Good morning, Karen. Lovely day for drilling. What do you think you're doing?" She jabbed a finger toward the rig. "You don't have approval for this." "I don't need approval. It's a well, private property, groundwater rights, all legal. This violates Section 12.8 of the HOA covenants regarding major property modifications." I'd memorized that section the night before. Section 12.8 applies to structures and landscaping visible from the street. The wellhead will be in my backyard, not visible from any public area. The only street-side element is a small access panel that complies with all aesthetic guidelines. Karen's face went red. "I'll have the board issue a cease and desist." "You're welcome to try. You'll lose." She leaned closer, lowering her voice to a vicious whisper. "I will make your life hell. You already did that when you cut off water to my cancer patient wife. Now I'm solving the problem." Permanently, I closed the door in her face. The drilling took 3 days. Miguel's team was efficient and professional. They hit the aquifer at 97 feet, 4 feet deeper than the survey indicated. But the flow rate was excellent, 12 gallons per minute. More than enough for a single-family home. By Sunday afternoon, We had raw well water flowing. Miguel installed a comprehensive filtration system, sediment filter, carbon filter, UV sterilization, and a softener. The water tested cleaner than municipal supply. Monday morning, I was in the backyard connecting the well system to the house plumbing when Barbara Martinez appeared at the fence. Barbara was 63. With kind eyes and gray hair, she wore in a practical shortcut. She'd been a fourth-grade teacher for 35 years and had the calm authority of someone who'd managed thousands of children. "Robert, may I come in?" "Of course." I opened the gate. She looked at the new well setup with a mixture of admiration and concern. "This is impressive. Miguel does good work." "You know Miguel? My sister used him for a well at her ranch." "Robert, I need to tell you something. Karen is escalating." I set down my wrench. "She's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow night. She's pushing for a lien against your property for unauthorized modifications and demanding you fill in the well. She can't do that. She's going to try. She's got Sam Fletcher and Christine Morrison convinced you're setting a dangerous precedent. If you can drill a well, what's to stop everyone from disconnecting from HOA utilities?" That was exactly what I'd hoped would happen. But I didn't say that out loud. "Barbara, I've followed every law. I've violated no legitimate HOA rules. If they file a lien, I'll sue them into the ground." "I know. And you'll win. But it'll be expensive and time-consuming. And Karen knows that. She's counting on you giving up." I thought about Linda upstairs, resting between chemo cycles. I thought about the $8,500 fine for violations that didn't exist. I thought about Karen's face when she realized her power play had failed. "I'm not giving up. Tell the board I'll be at that meeting." Barbara nodded slowly. "There's something else. Tom and I are voting against her regardless, but you might want to talk to some of the other homeowners. You're not the only one who's had problems with Karen's water cut-off threats. Who else?" "The Hendersons on Oak Street. She threatened them over their vegetable garden. The Patels on Riverside Drive. She said their traditional Diwali lights were excessive and threatened their water. The Martinez family, no relation to me, on Cactus Lane. She didn't like their Quinceañera party." I felt something shift in my chest. This wasn't just about me and Linda. This was about a pattern of abuse. How many families has she threatened? At least 17 that I know of. Most paid the fines because they were afraid. Because she controlled their water. Exactly. Water is leverage. It's survival. Kara figured out that threatening water service was the nuclear option, and she's been using it for 2 years. The rest of the board has mostly looked the other way because it maintains standards. I looked at my well, at the clean water flowing from 97 feet below ground. I looked at the filtration system that would give us independence from Karen's control. And I had an idea. "Barbara, what if the other families could disconnect too?" She blinked from the HOA water system. "Why not? If the aquifer under my property is this good, it probably extends under most of the neighborhood. What if I helped other families drill their own wells that would destroy Karen's leverage?" "Exactly." Barbara was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled a slow, dangerous smile that reminded me she hadn't spent 35 years managing children without learning something about power dynamics. "Robert, that's diabolical. Love Italiano. But you need to be careful. Karen will fight this with everything she has. Let her. I've got geology on my side, and apparently I've got 17 families who might want to hear about property rights and groundwater law." That evening, I created a simple flyer. At the top, "Tired of HOA water threats?" Below that, I outlined the basics: property rights, groundwater law, average well costs, and my phone number for consultations. Tuesday morning, before the emergency board meeting, I put a flyer in every mailbox on my street. By noon, I'd received 23 phone calls. By 4 p.m., I'd scheduled site assessments with Miguel for 6 different properties. By 6 p.m., when I walked into the HOA board meeting, Karen's face was the color of a ripe tomato. The meeting room was packed. Normally, board meetings attracted maybe 5 homeowners. Tonight, there were 47 people crammed into a space designed for 20. I recognized the Hendersons, the Patels, and at least a dozen others from Barbara's list. Karen sat at the head table, flanked by Sam Fletcher and Christine Morrison. Barbara and Tom Chun, not related to me, despite the last name, sat at the opposite end. The tension was thick enough to cut. Karen banged her gavel. This emergency meeting is called to order. First item, cease and desist order for Robert Chun's illegal well. Point of order, Barbara interrupted. It's not illegal. It's unauthorized. Authorization isn't required for groundwater access on private property. I had our attorney verify this yesterday. Karen's jaw clenched. Fine. Then we're voting to amend the covenants to prohibit wells. That requires a homeowner vote, not just a board decision. 75% approval for covenant amendments. The room erupted in conversation. Karen banged her gavel repeatedly. Order! Everyone who's not a board member, please leave. No one moved. Tom Chun, the board member, spoke up. Actually, Karen, HOA meetings are required to be open to all homeowners. You can't close this meeting. A man I didn't know stood up. I want to know why you threatened to cut off my water over my rose bushes. A woman near the back, and why I got fined $1,200 for parking my car in my own driveway? Another voice. You tried to shut down my daughter's lemonade stand. The room exploded with grievances. Karen's face cycled through shades of red and purple as she lost control of the meeting. I stood up, and the room gradually quieted. I'm not here to debate whether my well is legal. I'm here to inform the board that 6 other families have scheduled well assessments for next week, possibly more by the end of the month. The aquifer under Riverside Glen is extensive and high. Any homeowner can access it legally. Karen slammed her palm on the table. This is about your wife's illegal support group. You're trying to destroy this community's standards because we won't let you run a business out of your home. The room went silent. That was a mistake on Karen's part. A huge mistake. Linda's friend, Jessica, stood up. She was a 7-year breast cancer survivor and one of the Thursday group members. That illegal support group is 6 women with cancer supporting each other. My insurance pays for therapy, but Linda's house gives us something better hope. Are you seriously saying that's worth cutting off water to a chemo patient? The murmuring in the room turned hostile. All of it directed at Karen. Barbara seized the moment. I move for a vote of no confidence in Karen Whitmore's board position. Seconded, Tom said immediately. Sam Fletcher looked uncomfortable. We can't just vote someone off the board midterm. Actually, Barbara pulled out a document. Section 3.6 of the HOA bylaws allows for removal of a board member with a 2/3 vote for conduct detrimental to the community. I believe threatening 17 families with water cutoffs over petty violations qualifies. Karen stood up, her chair screeching. This is a witch hunt. I've done everything by the book. You've abused your position, Barbara said quietly, and now you're facing the consequences. The vote was 5-2. Karen and Christine voted no. Everyone else voted yes. Karen was off the board, effective immediately. She stood there, shaking with rage, then grabbed her purse and stormed out. As she passed my chair, she hissed, "This isn't over." I smiled. Yes, it is. But I was wrong. 3 days later, I woke up to find my newly installed wellhead had been vandalized. Someone had poured concrete down the well casing. Miguel estimated $8,000 in damage and a week's delay to drill a second well. And on my doorstep was a note in neat handwriting. I told you I'd make your life hell. The well was destroyed. The note was unsigned, but I knew exactly who'd sent it. And as I looked at the concrete-filled well that was supposed to give us independence, I realized Karen hadn't been defeated at all. She'd just escalated to warfare. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd attacked a man with nothing left to lose and 42 years of expertise in water systems. If she wanted war, I'd give her one she'd never forget. Has your HOA ever threatened your utilities or gone too far with their power? Share your story in the comments. Expose these tactics together. The concrete in my well casing was still wet when I called Miguel at 6:30 a.m. He arrived within the hour, took one look at the damage, and let out a low whistle. "Professional job," he said, crouching next to the ruined wellhead. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Poured it right down the casing to maximum depth. "This well is dead. Can we drill another one?" "Sure. Different location, same aquifer. But Robert, this is criminal vandalism. You need to call the police." I already had my phone out, way ahead of you. The Phoenix Suburb Police Department sent Officer James Morrison, a 20-year veteran with tired eyes, who'd probably seen every kind of neighborhood dispute imaginable. He photographed the damage, took my statement, and examined the note. "Any cameras?" he asked. "No. I was planning to install them this week." "Any witnesses?" "Not that I know of. It happened between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., Officer," Morrison sighed. "Mr. Chun, I'll be honest with you, unless we get prints or a witness, this is tough to prosecute. Even if you suspect who did it, suspicion isn't evidence. What if she threatens me again? Document everything. Cameras, recordings, witnesses, build a case." He handed me his card. "Call me if anything else happens after I left." I stood in my backyard looking at $8,000 of destroyed equipment. Linda came out with 2 cups of coffee and sat on the patio chair. "So what now?" she asked. "Now we drill a second. Oh, and we go nuclear." "Nuclear how?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the list of families who'd called about wells. 23 names had grown to 37 overnight. Every single one of these families has dealt with Karen's threats. Every single one of them is afraid of having their water cut off. What if we organize them? Into what? We pool resources, negotiate group rates with Miguel, and help each family drill their own well. Shared costs for geological surveys, bulk discounts on filtration systems, group legal defense if the HOA tries to stop us. Linda smiled. "You're talking about mass secession from the HOA water system." "Exactly. Karen used water as leverage because it was centralized control. We decentralize it, make every home independent, remove her weapon entirely. She'll fight you. She already is." I gestured to the concrete-filled well. "At least now I know what kind of fight this is." By noon, I'd sent emails to all 37 families proposing a meeting. By evening, 43 people had confirmed attendance for Saturday morning at the community center, which, ironically, we could rent because Barbara was still HOA president. Friday morning, I drove to the county recorder's office and pulled property records for the entire Riverside Glen development. 217 homes, all built between 2008 and 2014. All connected to the same HOA-controlled water system that drew from municipal supply. I cross-referenced those records with geological survey data I'd pulled from the U.S. Geological Survey database. The aquifer under Riverside Glen was even better than I'd thought it, extended under 93% of the properties, with an average depth of 85 to 110 feet. Flow rates varied, but were universally excellent. This wasn't just feasible. It was perfect. Saturday morning, 51 people showed up at the community center. The Hendersons, the Patels, the Martinez family, Jessica from Linda's support group, and dozens of others. Miguel Rodriguez came too, along with his business partner, Sophia Chun, also not related to me. I'd prepared a presentation. Nothing fancy, just facts, numbers, and laws. Here's what we know. I started displaying the geological map on the projector. The aquifer under our neighborhood can support independent wells for virtually every property. Average drilling cost is $20,000 to $25,000. Monthly water bills from the HOA average $85 to $120. Brockhaven is roughly 15 to 20 years. A man in the back raised his hand. That's a long time. True, but here's what that calculation doesn't include. Freedom from HOA water threats. No more Phoenix, no more leverage. No more fear. The room went quiet. Karen Whitmore has threatened 17 families that we know of with water cutoffs. She's collected approximately $93,000 in fines over the past 2 years, using water as leverage. She destroyed my will 3 days ago rather than let me be independent. This isn't about money. It's about control. Sophia spoke up. Miguel and I are prepared to offer group rates. If we get 10 commitments, we'll reduce the base drilling cost by 15%. 20 commitments, 20% off. We can also structure payment plans. A woman near the front stood up. I'm Jennifer Patel. Karen threatened to cut off our water last Diwali because she said our lights were a fire hazard. They were lead string lights. We paid her $4,000 in fines because we were terrified. I want my own well. Where do I sign up? 3 more hands went up immediately. By the end of the meeting, we had 18 solid commitments and another dozen families wanting quotes. I created a shared spreadsheet, collected contact information, and scheduled a follow-up meeting for 2 weeks later. As people filed out, Barbara approached me with Tom Chun, the board member. Robert, this is brilliant, but you need to know Karen's already talking to a lawyer. About what? We're not breaking any laws. She's claiming you're running an unlicensed contracting business by organizing the co-op. She wants the HOA to sue you for operating a commercial enterprise out of your home. I laughed. It just came out. Let me get this straight. She threatened to shut down my wife's cancer support group by calling it a commercial activity. Now she's using the same argument against me for helping neighbors exercise their legal property rights. Yup, Tom said. Also, she's got Christine Morrison convinced that mass well drilling will destabilize the geological foundation of the neighborhood. That's not even remotely how aquifers work. We know, but Christine doesn't. Karen's good at finding fear angles. Barbara crossed her arms. There's more. The HOA water system is managed by a private contractor, Sunbelt Water Services. They have an exclusive contract that runs through 2027. If enough homes disconnect, the HOA still has to pay the minimum service fees, but the cost per remaining home goes up dramatically. How dramatically? According to the contract Tom and I reviewed, if more than 30% of homes disconnect, the per-home cost could double or triple for everyone still connected. This was exactly what I'd hoped for: economic pressure that would force even more families to disconnect. But I kept my expression neutral. That seems like a problem the HOA board should have thought about before. Karen started threatening people's water. Barbara smiled slightly. I agree. But be prepared, Karen's going to use this against you. She'll say you're sabotaging the community. Then we'll need to move fast. Miguel's crew broke ground on my second well, Monday morning. This time, I'd installed 4 security cameras around the property, all with night vision and motion detection, all backed up to cloud storage. The second well went in 47 feet from the house, deeper into the backyard. Miguel hit the aquifer at 103 feet, with an even better flow rate than the first well, 14 gallons per minute. You've got good water karma, Miguel joked as his team installed the pump system. By Wednesday afternoon, my house had running water again, crystal clear, perfectly filtered, completely independent of the HOA. I'd spent $31,000, too late $1,000 for the destroyed first well, $23,000 for the second well, still cheaper than giving in to Karen. Thursday evening was Linda's support group. 6 women gathered in our living room as usual, but this time, before they started, I gave them each a folder. What's this? Jessica asked. Information packets about well drilling and property rights. If any of you are interested, or if you know anyone who's had problems with HOA water threats, pass them along. Maria, a 61-year-old with stage 2 breast cancer, flipped through the packet. My daughter's HOA in Scottsdale threatened her water last year over her kids' play equipment. She paid them $6,000. Can I give her this? Absolutely. The aquifer situation varies by location, but the property rights principles are the same everywhere in Arizona. By Sunday, I'd gotten calls from 8 people in other HOA communities. The movement was spreading beyond Riverside Glen. Monday morning, I received a certified letter from the law firm of Blackstone and Associates on behalf of the Riverside Glen The letter demanded I cease and desist all commercial water system consulting activities and threaten legal action for unauthorized business operations, community disruption, and interference with HOA utilities. I called my own lawyer, David Wu, a property rights specialist I'd worked with on consulting projects years ago. David read the letter and laughed. "This is garbage. You're not running a business here sharing information and connecting people with licensed contractors. That's protected speech. Also, you can't interfere with HOA utilities by choosing not to use them." "Can they sue me anyway?" "Sure. Anyone can sue anyone, but they'll lose, and they'll pay your legal fees when they do. Want me to send them a response?" "Please." David's response letter was a masterpiece. In 3 pages of precise legal language, he explained why every claim in their letter was baseless, cited 17 relevant Arizona property rights cases, and concluded with a polite offer to discuss their inevitable surrender in small claims court. The HOA's response came Thursday, an emergency board meeting notice for Saturday, March 31st, with exactly one agenda item: vote to amend community covenants to prohibit groundwater wells. The meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. By 9:45 a.m., 132 people had crammed into the community center. The fire marshal almost shut it down for overcrowding. Karen sat at the board table looking like she'd won the lottery. Next to her, Christine Morrison and Sam Fletcher looked significantly less confident. Barbara and Tom sat at the opposite end, and there were 2 empty chairs where board members had apparently decided not to show up. Karen called the meeting to order. "We're here to vote on an emergency amendment to prohibit destructive well drilling that threatens our community infrastructure." Before anyone else could speak, a man in the front row stood up. He was tall, probably in his early 70s, wearing a business suit that screamed lawyer. "Point of order. I'm Richard Henderson, attorney representing 43 homeowners in this community. Before this board votes on any amendment, I'm serving notice that any attempt to prohibit legal groundwater access will result in immediate litigation. My clients are prepared to sue both the HOA and individual board members personally for violation of Arizona property rights statutes." The room erupted in applause. Karen's face went white, then red. "You can't threaten us." "I'm not threatening. I'm informing. You're attempting to strip homeowners of constitutionally protected property rights. The legal precedent is crystal clear. You will lose." Barbara leaned forward. "Karen, even if we voted yes today, this amendment requires 75% homeowner approval. Given that 78 people have already committed to or completed well drilling, I don't think you'll get that approval." Karen's voice cracked. "That's 36% of the community. 35.9%. Actually," Tom corrected, "and growing daily." I stood up. "Karen, you're trying to solve a problem you created. You used water as a weapon. Now people are choosing independence. You can't threaten what you don't control. This is your fault." She jabbed a finger at me. "You turned everyone against the H. No. You did that when you cut off water to a cancer patient over a support group. I just offered people a solution." An elderly woman in the back shouted, "You fined me, $2,000 because my granddaughter's birthday banner was up for 3 days." Another voice, "You threatened my water over a garden gnome." Someone else, "You called code enforcement on my daughter's Girl Scout cookie table." The meeting dissolved into chaos. People were standing, shouting grievances, waving papers, documenting fines and threats. Karen banged her gavel uselessly. Barbara finally stood and raised her hands. The room gradually quieted. "I think it's clear this vote isn't happening today. However, I'm calling for a full audit of all HOA fines and water disconnection threats issued in the past 3 years. I'm also calling for a community-wide vote on Karen's continued board membership." "You already removed me once." Karen shrieked. "That was a board vote. This is a homeowner vote. Completely different process." Richard Henderson spoke again. "I'd also like to note that if this board attempts to enforce the Sunbelt Water Services contract against homeowners who've disconnected, my clients will countersue for the illegal fines already collected. We're estimating damages around $93,000 plus legal fees. Karen stood up so fast, her chair fell over. "This is a conspiracy. You're all—" She stopped mid-sentence, staring at something over my shoulder. I turned. Officer Morrison had entered the community center, along with another detective, Karen Whitmore. Morrison asked, "Why, yes, we need to ask you some questions about vandalism at the Chun residence on March 18th. We've received security footage from a neighbor showing someone matching your description near the property that evening." The room went silent. Karen's face cycled through expressions: shock, fear, then calculation. "I want my lawyer." "That's your right. But you'll need to come to the station with us." As Officer Morrison escorted Karen out, she turned and locked eyes with me. The hatred in that look was pure and concentrated, but underneath it, I saw something else. Fear. The meeting adjourned in chaos. People clustered in groups, talking excitedly. Miguel and Sophia were immediately swarmed with questions about well drilling. Richard Henderson handed out his card to anyone who wanted legal representation. Barbara approached me. "Robert, I think you just accidentally started a revolution." "Not accidentally. This was always the plan." She raised an eyebrow. "Really?" The moment Karen cut off our water, I knew this wasn't just about us. It was about breaking a system of control. Wells were just the tool. And now we finish it. How many homes are still on HOA water? About 139. Let's get that number, 20. Linda appeared at my elbow, grinning. "I heard they arrested Karen." "Not arrested," just questioned. "Still counts." She squeezed my hand. "How are you feeling?" "Honestly, exhausted. But good. Good. Because we have 32 people outside who want to talk about well drilling. And Miguel says he needs your help with site assessments." I looked out at the crowd in the parking lot, at the families who'd decided they were done being afraid, at the beginning of something that was bigger than revenge. Let's get to work. By the end of April, 63 homes had completed well installations. Another 42 were in progress. The HOA water system was serving only 112 homes, and the per-home cost had increased by 87%. 15 families from other HOA communities had reached out asking for help organizing similar and Karen Whitmore's lawyer had sent a letter offering to settle the vandalism charges with restitution and a public apology. I was considering the settlement offer when my security cameras caught something at 2A.M. A silver sedan parked across the street, engine running, someone inside watching my house. The same sedan had appeared 3 times in the past week. Karen might be facing charges, but someone was still watching us, and I had a sinking feeling that the real war was just beginning. Have you ever organized your community against HOA overreach? How did your neighbors react? Drop your story below. I want to hear how you fought back. The silver sedan appeared again on Tuesday night at 1:47 a.m. I was awake, working on geological survey maps for 3 families in a neighboring HOA, when my security system pinged. I pulled up the camera feed and watched the car idle across the street for exactly 17 minutes before driving away. Wednesday night, same car, same time, 18 minutes. Thursday night, 22 minutes. Someone was establishing a pattern, watching our routines. But it wasn't Karen. She was under police investigation, and her lawyer had explicitly told her to stay away from us. So, who? Friday morning, I ran the license plate through a reverse lookup service. The car was registered to Sunbelt Water Services, the company that held the exclusive contract with the Riverside Glen HOA. That changed everything. I called Richard Henderson immediately. "Robert, this is intimidation," he said, after I sent him the security footage. "Document everything. Every visit, every time stump. We might need it." "Need it for what?" "I've been reviewing the Sunbelt contract. There's a clause I missed initially. If service drops below 65% of homes, the HOA can terminate the contract early without penalty, but Sunbelt can sue for lost projected revenue." I did the math in my head. We're at 112 homes still connected out of 217 total. That's 51.6%. We're already below the threshold. Exactly. and Sunbelt's projected revenue over the remaining contract term is approximately $2.3 million. They're watching you because you're costing them money, a lot of money. Can they actually sue the HOA? Absolutely. And they will. But here's the interesting part. HOA can claim they couldn't prevent homeowners from exercising property rights, so Sunbelt might decide to sue you personally instead. For what? Sharing information. For tortious interference with a business contract. It's a stretch, but with enough money behind it, they can make your life expensive, even if they lose. I looked at Linda, who'd been listening on speaker. She shrugged. We've come this far. Richard, what's our best defense? Finish what you started. Get so many homes disconnected that the contract becomes completely unviable. At that point, Sunbelt will cut their losses and walk away rather than throw good money after bad. But you need to move fast. After I hung up, Linda asked, How fast is fast? We need 39 more homes to disconnect. That drops service to 73 homes, 33%. At that point, the economics are impossible. How long will that take? Miguel's crew can do 3 wells per week. Sophia's brought in 2 more drilling teams. So 9 wells per week at maximum capacity. We need 5 weeks if everyone who's committed actually follows through. And if Sunbelt decides to sue before then we fight. But fighting costs money and time. Better to make them irrelevant first. I spent the weekend calling every family on the waiting list, explaining the urgency. The surveillance footage helped. Nothing motivates people like knowing a corporation is watching their neighbor. By Monday, we had 47 firm commitments with deposits paid. Miguel, Sophia, and the 2 additional crews started drilling sites simultaneously across the neighborhood. Tuesday morning, the HOA received a letter from Sunbelt Water Services legal team. Barbara forwarded it to me within an hour. The letter was aggressive. Sunbelt claimed the HOA had failed to maintain minimum service levels and was allowing organized sabotage of the water system. They demanded the HOA take immediate action to prevent further disconnections or face breach of contract litigation. The letter specifically named me as the primary instigator and suggested the HOA sue me to stop the coup. Barbara called an emergency board meeting for Wednesday evening. The community center was packed again this time with 173 people, nearly 80% of the neighborhood. The local news was there too. Apparently, someone had tipped them off about the HOA water rebellion. A reporter from Channel 12 pushed a microphone toward me as I entered. Mr. Chun, Sunbelt Water Services claims you're destroying the community's water infrastructure. How do you respond? I'm helping families exercise their legal property rights to access groundwater. Sunbelt is angry because they're losing customers. That's business, not sabotage. But aren't you concerned about the families who can't afford wells? Won't their water bills skyrocket? That was a fair question, and I'd been thinking about it for weeks. Actually, we're working on that. Give me a few days. Inside, Barbara called the meeting to order. She looked exhausted. We're here to discuss Sunbelt's letter and their threats. The floor is open. Christine Morsel spoke first. She'd been quiet since Karen's removal, but now she looked genuinely worried. Barbara, if Sunbelt sues us, the HOA doesn't have money for that kind of legal battle. Our reserves are only $83,000. A lawsuit could bankrupt us. Tom Chun leaned forward. Then we terminate the contract ourselves. We're below the 65% threshold. We can walk away clean. But what about the families still on their water? Christine asked. What happens to them? They connect to municipal supply directly, or they drill wells. Not everyone can afford a well. I stood up. May I speak? Barbara nodded. Christine's right. Not everyone can afford $25,000 for a well. But here's what we've learned. The aquifer under Riverside Glen can support shared wells. One well with proper infrastructure can serve 3 to 4 homes. The cost per family drops to $7,000 to $8,000. The room erupted in conversation. I continued, we've identified 12 optimal drilling sites that could serve the remaining 73 homes through shared well systems. Total project cost, is approximately $290,000. If we finance it through a special assessment to only the participating families, that's about $4,000 per home. That's still a lot of money for some families. Someone called out, "True," which is why we're proposing the HOA use its $83,000 reserve to subsidize low-income families. The remaining $207,000 gets split among families who can afford it, and we structure payment, plans 12 months. No interest. Barbara was staring at me. You've really thought this through. We've had a lot of time while drilling wells. Miguel and Sophia ran all the numbers. It's feasible. Sam Fletcher, who'd been mostly silent on the board since Karen's removal, spoke up. So, you're proposing we use HOA money to help people disconnect from the HOA water system? I'm proposing we use HOA money to free every family in this community from corporate leverage. Yes. Richard Henderson stood. I'd like to add something. If the HOA terminates the Sunbelt contract and helps facilitate community water independence, Sunbelt's lawsuit becomes much harder to win. Courts don't like companies that sue communities for exercising property rights. The publicity alone would kill them. A woman in the back stood up high, recognized her as Margaret Wilson, one of the few remaining connected homes. She was elderly, probably in her late 70s, and had lived in Riverside Glen since the development opened. I can't afford $4,000, she said quietly. My husband died 2 years ago. I'm on a fixed income, but I've been terrified ever since Karen started threatening people. I don't sleep well anymore. The room went silent. If you can help me get independent water, I'll pay whatever I can, even if it takes me 5 years. Linda stood up next to me. Margaret, how much can you afford monthly? Maybe $50? I'm so sorry. It's not much. $50 a month is perfect. That's $600 a year. You'll own your water system in 7 years, and you'll never be threatened again. Margaret started crying. 2 women near her moved to comfort her. I looked around the room at faces I'd come to know over the past month, families who'd been afraid, then angry, then determined. We'd started this because Karen cut off our water, but it had become something bigger. Let's vote, I said. All in favor of terminating the Sunbelt contract, implementing shared well systems, and making Riverside Glen completely water independent. The show of hands was overwhelming. 161 people voted yes. 3 voted no. 9 abstained. Barbara smiled. Real, genuine smile. Motion passes Sam, Christine, Tamar, we, in agreement as a board. All 3 nodded. Then it's decided. I'll send termination notice to Sunbelt tomorrow morning. The news crews got their footage. The headline on Channel 12 that night was Arizona HOA cuts ties with water company, goes independent. By Friday morning, we'd received calls from 17 other HOA communities asking for help. Sunbelt's response came Monday morning. A lawsuit filed against both the Riverside Glen HOA and me personally for breach of contract and tortious interference, seeking $2.3 million in damages. Richard Henderson wasn't surprised. They're desperate, but they've also just made a huge mistake. How so? They sued you personally. That means we get to depose their executives, examine their business practices, and make their intimidation tactics public record. And I've done some research. Riverside Glen isn't the first community they've sued for breaking their contract. It's the 7th. They have a pattern. Yes. Sunbelt goes after small HOAs with predatory contracts, then sues them into submission when they try to leave. Except this time, they picked a fight with a community that's organized, media savvy, and angry. What's our move? We countersue. Class action. On behalf of every family they've intimidated, we claim their surveillance of your property constitutes harassment. We expose their contract terms to public scrutiny, and we dare them to take this to trial. Will they? Not if they're smart. But corporations aren't always smart when they're losing money. The countersuit was filed Wednesday. By Friday, 3 local news stations had done investigative pieces on Sunbelt's history of aggressive litigation. By Monday, 2 state legislators had announced inquiries into predatory water service contracts. Sunbelt's stock price dropped 11%. Their CEO issued a statement calling the controversy overblown and insisting they were simply protecting contractual rights. The internet did what the internet does. Sunbelt's Yelp rating dropped from 3.8 stars to 1.2 stars in 72 hours. Their Google reviews became a compilation of horror stories from communities they'd controlled. Thursday morning, Miguel called me. "Robert, I've got 6 communities in 3 different counties asking about the shared well model. This is becoming a movement. Can you handle that much work? I've already brought in 4 more drilling crews. Sophia's managing logistics. We're talking about maybe 300 homes across all these communities over the next 6 months. That's a lot of wells. It's a lot of freedom." He paused. "Robert, I want to offer you a job. Business development consultant. 20% of net revenue from these community projects. You'd be doing what you're already doing, but we'd formalize it and you'd get paid." I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. "Miguel, I appreciate it, but I can't take money for this. It makes Sunbelt's lawsuit stronger proofs. I had a financial motive. What if we structure it as deferred compensation that only kicks in after all litigation is resolved? Still, no, but I'll keep helping communities for free. Consider it my retirement hobby." Miguel laughed. "Most people take up golf. Golf is boring." The shared well drilling in Riverside Glen began in early May. Miguel's teams worked on 3 sites simultaneously, each designed to serve 4 homes through a shared pump system and distribution network. The geology was perfect, consistent aquifer depth, excellent water quality, and high flow rates. By May 15th, 49 homes had been connected to shared systems. By May 30th, 68 homes. The remaining 5 homes were scheduled for early June. The HOA water system was officially serving 0 homes. Sunbelt sent a settlement offer on June 2nd. They'd drop the lawsuit if the HOA paid $500,000, and I issued a public apology admitting I'd improperly interfered with their business. Richard Henderson's response was a single sentence. Counteroffer. Sunbelt drops the lawsuit, pays our legal fees of $78,000, and issues a public apology for intimidating Mr. Chun and his community. Their lawyer called Richard screaming. Richard put him on speaker so I could hear. "Your client destroyed $2.3 million in revenue. You expect us to apologize? Your client intimidated a cancer patient and surveilled private citizens. Yes, I expect you to apologize. I also expect you to settle because if this goes to trial, your discovery phase will be very, very public. Do you really want the media looking into your practices and those 7 other communities you've sued?" Silence on the other end. "I'll talk to my client," the lawyer finally said. The settlement came through on June 9th. Sunbelt dropped the lawsuit, paid our legal fees, and issued a brief statement acknowledging community property rights. No admission of wrongdoing, but no money for them either. Karen Whitmore pleaded guilty to criminal vandalism on June 12th. Her sentence, 200 hours of community service, restitution of $8,000 to me, and 3 years probation. She also resigned from the HOA board permanently as part of a civil settlement. I never saw her again. She sold her house in July and moved to Nevada. On June 15th, I was in my backyard testing water quality from our well when Linda came out with her phone. Her expression, strange, half excited, half worried. "Robert, you need to see this." She showed me a news article. National HOA Management Company announces new mandatory water compliance. Policies threatens communities that pursue independent systems. The company was Covenant Community Services, and they managed 1,100 HOA communities across 9 states. Their new policy explicitly prohibited groundwater wells and threatened legal action against any homeowner who attempted to disconnect from HOA-managed utilities. They'd essentially declared war on what we'd accomplished, and according to the article, they were starting their enforcement campaign in Arizona. Linda looked at me. "What do we do now?" I looked at my well, at the water flowing clean and clear from 97 feet below ground. I thought about Margaret Wilson making her $50 monthly payments. I thought about the 17 communities who'd reached out for help. Now, Primera smiled. "Now, we take this statewide. Is your HOA part of a national management company that restricts your property rights? Are they threatening you over utilities? Share which company manages your HOA. Let's map out who's doing this and where. Covenant Community Services press release landed like a bomb across Arizona's HOA landscape. Within 48 hours, 3 communities that had contacted me about well drilling received cease and desist letters. Week Covenants had sent policy update notices to all 1,100 communities under their management nationwide. The notice was aggressive and unambiguous. Effective immediately. Groundwater well installation on HOA properties requires board approval. Unauthorized wells will result in fines up to $50,000 and potential foreclosure proceedings. This policy protects community infrastructure and property values. Linda read the notice over breakfast on June 17. Can they actually do this? No. Property rights supersede HOA covenants, but they're betting most people won't fight back. I scrolled through my email 47 messages overnight, all from homeowners in covenant-managed communities asking if the policy was legal. Richard Henderson called at 8:15 a.m. Robert, we need to move fast. Covenant is trying to freeze the movement before it spreads. They're going after Tescasis communities, where well drilling is just starting. What do they want? They want a court ruling that says HOAs can prohibit wells. If they get that precedent, they'll use it everywhere. And if they lose, then their policy collapses and 1,100 communities suddenly know they can't be controlled. Robert, this is bigger than Riverside Glen now. This is about whether corporations can override state property law. What's our play? We find the strongest test case possible. A community where the facts are undeniable, where covenant's overreach is obvious, and where we can win decisively. Then we make it so public they can't afford to appeal. I might have something. I pulled up an email from 3 days earlier. Desert Hills, about 90 minutes south of here. Covenant manages them. Their water system failed last month, contaminated with arsenic from old pipes. The HOA can't afford to replace the pipes, so they've been trucking in bottled water. One homeowner, a single mother with 3 kids, tried to drill a well. Covenant threatened foreclosure. Richard was quiet for a moment. That's perfect. Covenant threatening foreclosure because someone wants clean water for their children. We can't lose that case. Can you get me in touch with her? I'll call her now. Her name was Rebecca Torres. She was 34 years old, worked as a nurse at a Phoenix hospital, and had bought her Desert Hills home 2 years earlier, with everything she'd saved. When Primera called, she sounded exhausted and scared. Mr. Chun, I got your email last month, but I was afraid to move forward. Now Covenant is saying if I drill a well, they'll foreclose on my house. Rebecca, they can't do that. It's an illegal threat, but we need to call their bluff. I can't risk losing my house. My kids, I understand. But here's what I'm proposing. We fight this together. You drill your well. When Covenant moves to foreclose, we sue them. We bring in media. We expose what they're doing. And we make this the test case that breaks their policy nationwide. And if we lose, we won't. But if somehow we did, I personally guarantee your legal fees. You won't lose a penny. Silence on the line. Then, why would you do that for me? Because Karen Whitmore cut off my water while my wife had cancer. Because corporations shouldn't be able to threaten families over access to clean water. Because someone needs to draw a line. Another pause. Okay. Let's do it. Miguel's crew was at Rebecca's house in Desert Hills on June 20th. Covenant's representatives showed up within 2 hours. Along with a local sheriff's deputy, they'd apparently convinced there was some kind of legal violation happening. I was there with Richard Henderson and a crew from Channel 12. The confrontation was exactly what we'd hoped for. Covenant's regional manager, a man named Douglas Kent, tried to physically block Miguel's drilling rig from entering the property. The reporter shoved a microphone toward Kent. Mr. Kent, why is Covenant trying to prevent Ms. Torres from accessing clean water? This isn't about water. This is about unauthorized modifications that violate community standards. Community's water is contaminated with arsenic. Ms. Torres has 3 children. How is preventing her from drilling a well protecting anyone? Kent's face went red. We have processes. She needs board approval. The board denied her application," Rebecca said, stepping forward. "They said wells aren't allowed under any circumstances. So my options are to keep buying bottled water forever or move out of my house. Those are my choices." The sheriff's deputy, who'd been listening carefully, spoke up. "Mr. Kend, is there actually a law being broken here? The HOA covenants, I'm asking about laws, not HOA rules. Arizona property law." Kent hesitated. "The covenants are legally binding. That's not what I asked." The deputy turned to Miguel. "Sir, do you have the proper permits for this drilling?" Miguel handed over a folder. "County permits, geological survey, licensed contractor bonds. Everything's legal." The deputy nodded, then looked at Kent. "Then I don't see a law enforcement issue here. This is a civil matter between the homeowner and the HOA. I'm not stopping legal work on private property." Kent tried to argue, but the deputy was already walking back to his patrol car. Miguel's crew started drilling. The Channel 12 piece aired that evening. The headline: HOA Management Company tries to block single mother's access to clean water. It went viral by midnight. By morning, Covenant's corporate headquarters in Dallas was drowning in angry phone calls and emails. Their Facebook page became a wall of outrage. 3 Arizona legislators announced they were drafting legislation to prohibit HOAs from restricting groundwater access. Covenant's PR team issued a statement on June 22nd. Covenant Community Services respects homeowner rights and is reviewing its policies regarding alternative water systems. The situation in Desert Hills is being evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Richard Henderson laughed when he read it. That's corporate speak for "we're panicking." They know they can't win this publicly. Will they back down completely? Not without a fight. But we've shifted the narrative. They're defending themselves now. Instead of attacking Rebecca's well-hit water on June 24th at 108 feet, flow rate, 13 gallons per minute. Water quality, excellent. Total cost, $22,000, which we'd financed through an emergency fund I'd set up using the restitution money from Karen Whitmore, plus donations from Riverside Glen families. Covenant sent foreclosure paperwork on June 27th. Richard Henderson filed suit on June 28th, not just against Covenant, but against their corporate officers personally for knowingly violating Arizona property rights statutes. The lawsuit also included a class action component. Anyone in a Covenant-managed community who'd been threatened over water access could join. Within 72 hours, 143 families from 6 states had joined the class action. Covenant's stock price dropped 18%. Their CEO, Martin Bradshaw, held a press conference on July 3rd. He was a slick man in his early 50s, with perfect hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Covenant Community Services has always prioritized homeowner welfare. Recent misunderstandings about our water system policies have been blown out of proportion by media. We're committed to working with communities to find reasonable solutions. A reporter asked, "Mr. Bradshaw, you threatened to foreclose on a single mother because she wanted clean water for her children." "Oh, is that a misunderstanding? That situation was handled inappropriately by regional management. We've since revised our approach, so you're admitting your policy was wrong." Bradshaw's smile tightened. "We're evolving our policies to better serve homeowners." Another reporter, "Will you drop the foreclosure action against Ms. Torres? That's being reviewed by our legal team." "That's not a no." "Why haven't you dropped it already? These matters are complex." "It seems simple. You're trying to take a woman's house because she drilled a well. Yes or no, will you stop the foreclosure?" Bradshaw's smile disappeared entirely. "This press conference is over." The video of him walking out went even more viral than the Rebecca Torres story. B. Hooley Fieft Covenant had lost 27% of its market value. Their board of directors announced an emergency strategy review on Hooley 8. Covenant's lawyers contacted Richard Henderson with a settlement offer. They'd drop the foreclosure, drop the well prohibition policy, pay $200,000 to the class action plaintiffs, and issue a public apology. Richard called me immediately. "They're folding. But I think we can push for more." "Like what?" like a consent decree that prohibits them from ever restricting groundwater access in any community they manage, make it permanent and binding. Will they agree to that? They will, if we threaten to push this to trial. Their stock is in freefall. Every day this continues costs them money. The final settlement came through on July 5th. Covenant agreed to drop all foreclosure actions related to water wells, rescind the mandatory water compliance policy, pay $350,000 to the class action plaintiffs, issue a public statement affirming homeowner groundwater rights, sign a consent decree prohibiting future restrictions on legal water access, pay all legal fees. Rebecca Torres received $50,000 from the settlement. She used it to finish her well system and set up college funds for her 3 kids. The Arizona legislature passed the Homeowner Water Rights Protection Act on July 20. It explicitly prohibited HOAs from restricting groundwater access, imposed penalties for utility-based intimidation, and created a streamlined process for homeowners to challenge HOA overreach. 2 other states, Nevada and New Mexico, began drafting similar legislation. By August 1st, Miguel's company had completed well installations for 437 homes across 14 communities in Arizona. Sophia had expanded operations to Nevada and was fielding calls from California and Texas. The co-op model we'd developed in Riverside Glen had been replicated in 9 communities. Shared well systems had brought water independence to over 200 homes that couldn't afford individual wells. On August 15th, Linda's oncologist delivered news we'd been hoping for. Her latest scans showed no evidence of disease. The cancer was in remission. That evening, we sat on our back patio, watching the sunset over the Arizona desert. Our well pump hummed quietly in the background, a sound that had become comforting, a reminder of independence. You know what's funny, Linda? Saeed. Karen cutting off our water was probably the best thing that ever happened to this community. How do you figure? It woke everyone up, made them realize they had power they didn't know about. If she'd just left us alone, we'd all still be afraid of HOA threats. You're surprisingly philosophical about someone who tried to destroy us. Linda smiled. I'm in remission, and we just took down a national corporation. I can afford to be philosophical. My phone buzzed. Another email, this one from a community in Colorado, asking about well drilling and HOA rights. Here we go again, I said. Are you going to help them? What do you think? I think you're retired and supposed to be relaxing. This is relaxing. It's just productive relaxing. Linda laughed, the sound clear and bright in the evening air. Robert Chen, water revolutionary. Who would have guessed? Not me. I just wanted to flush the toilet. Well, you've certainly done that. And started a movement, and destroyed multiple corporations. Pretty good for a guy who just wanted water. Barbara Martinez appeared at our gate, waving a bottle of wine. Am I interrupting? Never, Linda said. Get over here. Barbara settled into a chair and poured 3 glasses. I come bearing news. The HOA just received its final bill from the Sunbelt contract termination. $0 owed. We're completely free and clear. And the shared well systems, all online, all functioning perfectly. Total community cost was 43% less than your original estimate because Miguel's bulk pricing got even better. We're putting the savings into an emergency maintenance fund. How are the families doing? Thriving. Margaret Wilson told me yesterday she sleeps better now than she has in 5 years. No more nightmares about water shutoffs. Barbara raised her glass. To Robert Chen, who turned one vindictive HOA president into a community revolution. We clinked glasses. The wine was excellent. I'm giving a speech next week, Barbara continued. County Planning Commission invited me to talk about alternative community utilities. They want to know if the Riverside Glen model can work for other services: electricity, internet, waste management. Can it? Linda asked. I don't know. But Robert's going to help me figure it out. She grinned at me. Whether he wants to or not. I'm retired, I protested. You're also the most unretired, retired person I've ever met. Face it, Robert, you've found your second career. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was McGill. Robert, Got a call from a community in Oregon. Their HOA is threatening water shutoffs over political signs. Sound familiar? They're asking if we can help. I showed the message to Linda and Barbara. Linda sighed. Oregon, that's far. It's a phone call and some documentation, I said. Maybe a geological survey review. I don't have to go there. Yet Barbara added, give it 6 months and you'll be consulting nationwide. She wasn't wrong. By September, I was working with communities in 7 states. October, a civil rights organization contacted me about developing a homeowner utilities independence toolkit for nationwide distribution. In November, Linda's support group celebrated its 3rd anniversary. 12 women now attended every Thursday evening. None of them worried about HOA retaliation anymore. In December, I received a letter from Karen Whitmore. It had been forwarded through 3 addresses before reaching me. The return address was somewhere in Henderson, Nevada. The letter was short. Mr. Chen, I doubt you'll believe this, but I wanted to apologize. What I did was wrong, vindicta, petty, and cruel. I was angry about things that had nothing to do with you, and I took it out on your family. I've spent the past 6 months in therapy trying to understand why I needed to control everyone around me. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I recognize what I did, and I'm sorry. I hope your wife is well. Karen Whitmore. I read it twice, then handed it to Linda. What do you think? I asked. I think she's probably genuine. I also think therapy is good for her. Linda folded the letter carefully. Are you going to respond? I don't know. Part of me wants to. Part of me thinks some bridges are better left burned. You don't have to decide today. I never did write back. But I kept the letter, filed away in a drawer with all the other documentation from those months, the Sunbelt contract, the covenant settlement, the news clippings, the photos of drilling rigs and happy families. On January 9th, 2024, exactly 9 months after Karen cut off our water, I stood in front of 87 people at a community center in Tucson. They were homeowners from 3 different HOA communities, all dealing with utility-based intimidation from management companies. I showed them geological surveys, explained property rights law, walked them through the co-op model. I told them about Riverside Glen, about Rebecca Torres, about Margaret Wilson making her $50 payments. Here's what I learned, I concluded. Power doesn't come from controlling resources. It comes from making resources inaccessible. The moment you make water or electricity or internet or any other utility accessible without permission, that power evaporates. You don't have to fight the system, you just have to make it irrelevant. A woman in the front row raised her hand. Mr. Chen, our HOA management company is threatening legal action if we even talk about wells. They say it's a conspiracy to damage property values. They said that about us too. De y lost. Here's what you need to understand. They're terrified. Every community that goes independent is proof that their business model doesn't work. They'll threaten. They'll bluster. They'll sue if they think they can win, but they can't win against property law, and they know it. A man in the back. What if we can't afford wells? Then you organize shared systems, pool resources, get bulk pricing, structure payment plans. The COPE we built in Riverside Glen has families paying as little as $47 a month. That's less than most water bills. And if the HOA retaliates, document everything. Build a legal case. Get media involved. These companies survive in the dark. Shine a light on them, and they fold. I paused. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. This is hard. It takes time, money, and courage. You'll have people telling you it's impossible, that you're crazy, that you're destroying your community. But you're not. You're saving it. After the presentation, 43 people signed up for geological surveys. 17 committed to well drilling. 4 wanted to start conversations in their own communities about independence movements. Linda was waiting in the parking lot when I finished. How'd it go? We just started 3 more revolutions. She laughed. Of course we did. 3 weeks later, On a Tuesday morning in late January, I was reviewing water quality reports when the doorbell rang. A courier stood there with a large envelope. Inside was an award certificate from the Arizona Property Rights Coalition Community Advocacy Award in recognition of extraordinary service to homeowner rights and community independence. There was also a check for $5,000 to support continued advocacy work. I stared at it for a long moment, then called Linda into the office. "What am I supposed to do with this?" She didn't hesitate. "Start a foundation. Make it official. Turn this into something that outlasts us." "A foundation? Robert, you've been doing this work for free for 9 months. You're taking calls at midnight from families in crisis. You're spending hours analyzing geological surveys for communities you've never visited. Either you burn out or you build something sustainable." She was right. She was always right. The Homeowner Water Rights Foundation officially launched on March 14th, 2024, exactly 1 year after Karen cut off our water. We started with the $5,000 award, donations from Riverside Glen families, and a small grant from a civil liberties organization. By June, we'd helped 27 communities across 9 states achieve water independence. By September, 54 communities in 14 states. By December, 91 communities in 18 states. The movement had grown far beyond wells. Communities were organizing around solar power, fibered internet, waste management, any utility that HOAs or corporations had weaponized for control. On March 14th, 2025, Linda and I stood in our backyard for the 2-year anniversary of the day that changed everything. The well pump hummed steadily. The filtration system gleamed in the morning sun. Everything worked perfectly. "Do you ever regret it?" Linda asked. "I mean, we could have just paid Karen's fines. Moved on. Stayed quiet. Not once. You. Never." She squeezed my hand. "Although I do sometimes miss the days when your biggest concern was golf." "I told you, golf is boring. And overthrowing corporate utility monopolies is exciting, apparently." I pulled her close. "Besides, we make a good team. The best team. Cancer-surviving revolutionary and her hydrogeologist husband, taking on corporate America one well at a time. That's definitely going on our tombstone." She laughed, the sound mixing with the desert wind and the steady hum of our independent water system, the sound of freedom, hard-won and deeply satisfying. My phone buzzed. Another community in Montana asking for help. "Here we go again," Linda said. "Here we go again," I agreed. And somewhere, 97 feet below the Arizona desert, clean water flowed endlessly from the aquifer, free and clear, belonging to no one and everyone, impossible to control, impossible to weaponize, impossible to take away. Karen Whitmore cut off my water to punish me for my wife's cancer support group. I responded by building a well and helping over 400 families achieve water independence. The movement spread to 18 states, destroyed multiple corporate policies, and proved something simple but profound. When you take away someone's fear, you take away your power over them. We didn't just disconnect from their grid, we made their grid irrelevant. Have you achieved independence from HOA or corporate control over your utilities? Are you planning to? Share your victory stories. Let's inspire the next wave of community revolutionaries.